Emotions are boiling over on the streets of Tel Aviv, meanwhile, with demands for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to resign. 136 hostages are still being held by Hamas in Gaza, and their families are running out of patience. Dozens blocked a major highway on Saturday night, lighting bonfires. An angry crowd marched on military headquarters, demanding a deal with Hamas to free the remaining hostages. DW's Ben Fajzullin reports.
The battle lines are drawn between the demonstrators and police. A 1,000-strong crowd outside military headquarters.
Police are now moving in, some of them on horseback, to subdue the protesters. Things are reaching tipping point here in Tel Aviv. They're taking away one protester after the next.
They shout at the police, "Shame on you."
What they're doing is they're attacking protesters and arresting peaceful protesters and attacking them, choking them, trampling them, doing exactly what you would expect from a corrupt militia in a dictatorial country. And now they're using these horses. You do not need to do that in order to clear the streets. The protests have been very peaceful.
They've also been growing every week and becoming more and more political.
This was a nation in shock just 4 months ago. They were dealing with the trauma of October 7. They were dealing with a war against Hamas. Now their fury is pointed directly at the Israeli government.
This parliament of ours right now is a government of criminals and a parliament of criminals which are busy robbing the economy of this state and taking care of private interests instead of taking care of this state, which is really what we did right now.
Just up the road, the families of hostages block a highway, setting bonfires ablaze. They want the immediate release of the captives. The same message a kilometre away at Habima Square. Residents of Tel Aviv tell me about their fears for Israeli and Palestinian lives.
I'm here because I am strongly against the violence that is happening in the Gaza Strip. As an Israeli citizen, I'm devastated to live my life normally while this is happening an hour away from me.
The situation is just unbearable. The government we have here is just destroying the country, destroying the future of my children. We are in a situation that is so sad and so deeply disturbing that we just cannot continue to stay home and not say anything. We need to have elections.
Never ever so many people have died in Israel in one war, and this is one government that is in charge for this, and they're not taking any responsibility for what happened, and it's unbelievable.
126 days of war. How much longer will Netanyahu's coalition last?
Let's bring in our Jerusalem correspondent, Tania Krämer. Tania, protesters are demanding the return of the hostages that remain in Gaza, but there's a lot more brewing under the surface, isn't there?
Well, absolutely. And we've seen this here in the past weeks that, those protests have been growing louder and larger. You see sometimes on Saturday evenings, there are now anti-government protests that are merging then into those vigils and protests for bringing the remaining hostages home. So there are many people out here in the streets in Israel, while you have to say there's still a large majority of the Israeli public supporting the war, but there's a lot of anger in how the Israeli government is handling the particular issue of the hostages. Over 130 hostages are still held in Gaza by Hamas and other militant groups, and over about 20 of them are presumed dead. And people here are saying that their time is basically running out, that the government policy of maximum pressure on Hamas to to reach another deal is clearly not working out. But at the same time, we are seeing also that more and more people are coming out and saying that there needs to be a change in leadership and calling for elections. And as the report said, more and more people are criticizing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in particular. People here are very angry at him because he has never taken full responsibility for the security failures linked to the October 7 terror attacks by Hamas. And also they're saying he's lacking a clear view, or he's not showing, what will happen after the war in Gaza ends, particularly also given that there might be another escalation between Israel and Hezbollah in the north, potentially another war coming up in the region.
Criticism is, as you point out, growing louder and louder inside the country as well as outside. How has the government responded so far?
Well, they didn't really respond to it. And I think what we've been hearing from Prime Minister Netanyahu especially is that he said he's deferring all the criticism to after the war. He has said we're in a war, the country needs to stand together. This is also why then, the smaller war cabinet was formed where some of the opposition figures joined. But we are seeing more and more cracks there. And I think if they would decide at some point that they wouldn't stay in this war cabinet, then we might see things unravel. But for the time being, it is more the mantra by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that everything else, the investigation, what happened on October 7, whether there will be elections, this is all deferred to someday after, whenever that will be.
An approach that doesn't seem to convince many Israelis. That was Tania Krämer. Thank you so much.